Welcome back to the Vandy Sports Podcast. I'm Joey Dwyer here on a busy Saturday morning, but not necessarily a good one for Vanderbilt. It's lost two of its five members of its highly touted 2022 class today, Noah Shelby and Malik. Early this morning, Malik announced that he'll enter the portal, and then shortly thereafter, Vanderbilt got some more bad news as Noah Shelby announced the same. Obviously not news you want to hear, but obviously not completely heartbreaking news either if you're Vanderbilt. It's something you can bounce back from now. I have two open scholarships to use in the portal, but generally when you look at a class like 2022 and a class that big with that many different types of players in it, you want that class to kind of be your core and one that kind of grows up together, can get old and stay old, as Mike Bray says. But Vanderbilt seems to not have much of an option there anymore with Shelby and Dia entering the portal. It felt like if they could keep those five guys together, they could maybe grow up together, and you add in a guy like Isaiah West later on, you add in a guy from the portal here or there, you bring in a transfer to spot minutes or maybe be the star, and those guys can be the complementary pieces. But now almost feels like Vanderbilt's going to have to work largely through the portal in terms of its future outlook. And these big recruiting classes, I think, will do that to you. It's really hard to keep a five-man class together. Even if all these guys are playing, all these guys did play throughout the year. Shelby hadn't checked into a game since February 14th, but got some significant minutes in SEC play. Dia averaged 8.7 minutes a game. So obviously it's just hard to keep guys happy. And with the depth of roster Vanderbilt has, especially in that front court and even with the backcourt with Shelby, it felt hard for them to keep on to all these guys. It was inevitable that no matter how hard Jerry Stackhouse and staff tried to keep these guys happy, it's going to be really hard to keep a class like this together. And I think it does hurt just from a standpoint of we want that nucleus. We want those guys to grow up together. And obviously not a great day for Vanderbilt, but certainly one it can bounce back from. The thing that stands out to me is just the depth that Vanderbilt has in the backcourt and the front court. I think that's probably largely the reason for both of these transfers. You look at Dia, who entered this morning. The front court has Colin Smith already, has Lee Dort returning, Quentin Millard-Brown's returning, and then you add in Carter Lang, you add in Jaquaylin Roberts, all guys who play the 4 and the 5, and that's kind of where Dia was stationed at in terms of his position. You look at all those guys are guys who could take minutes from Dia, and I think Dia obviously has shown some really positive signs on the perimeter, has shown he can be a tremendous player if developed the right way, but he's got a lot of growing up to do in terms of his offensive skill set, his shot selection, has to work on his defense as well. The Michigan game stands out to me where Dia went in the game, shot a 3 and missed, and could have kept the ball moving there, and then goes on the other end and Hunter Dickinson scores on him a few times. So obviously some things to be desired there in terms of Dia's development, but almost reminds me of a guy like E.J. Liddell if he can be completely properly developed. I don't know if that's completely realistic, but certainly a guy who has some upside and hurts to lose. But in terms of just development and what he could do in that front court moving forward, there's a lot of bodies in that front court, a lot of guys who are more prepared to get minutes than him right now, and obviously could hurt his development moving forward if he had stayed at Vanderbilt. So not a completely shocking decision for Malik. That front court is really crowded. So a lot of guys who are going to get big minutes next year, and I'm not sure Dia was in line to get those unless he had really developed over the summer. Noah Shelby almost reminds me of a similar situation to Dia, has to work on his shot selection, has to work on his defense. And even this year, without a guy like Isaiah West coming in or without another guy from the portal, still didn't really play much at all, averaged just a few minutes a game. Hadn't played in a game since February 14th against South Carolina. Had a big game against Tennessee, just like Dia did against Kentucky. But obviously, Shelby's a guy who has some growing to do, and I think that was evident by Stackhouse deciding to play Trey Thomas and Paul Lewis over him, in addition to Ezra Manjon and Tyron Lawrence. That's really your backcourt. That's going to give you the most complete package. It feels like Stack got a lot of flack for playing Thomas over Shelby, but it's a guy who knew how to run his stuff better, had more off the dribble ability, was a little more versatile in terms of being able to play the two guard spots, and Vanderbilt just didn't end up having a role for Shelby long term in that backcourt. Lewis was a more cut and dry role in terms of just being a true point guard and a facilitator. Shelby had to get his shots. He had to be able to run off screens, didn't have quite the off the dribble ability to go create his own shot, and not the playmaking ability, at least that he showed at Vanderbilt, to be a true one and a guy who could be a primary ball handler. So just looking at how these guys kind of fit into that backcourt and the front court for Dia, I guess, it's just kind of bleak in terms of Vanderbilt's got all these guys this year, and he's still not Shelby's still not playing. Then you add in Isaiah West and maybe a guy from the portal, and the outlook looks really bleak there. As Shelby looks to develop into an SEC player, not getting minutes is not going to help him, and especially in a backcourt that deep where Vanderbilt's still looking to add. Obviously not a great situation for him. And then Dia, almost the same thing there. Talented player, needs some developing though, and maybe not going to get that at Vanderbilt with all the guys in the front court and all that they can do to help you. So obviously a loss for Vanderbilt. These guys had high upside. Noah Shelby's a top 100 recruit. Diaz, what Stackhouse called his most talented player, but both of them had to do a lot of growing. And Vanderbilt doesn't seem to be the place where they thought they were best suited to do that. So obviously a loss for Vanderbilt. Now you watch whether Vanderbilt can keep that class together at all. Does Lee Dort decide to opt back in and stay? Does Colin Smith decide to opt back in and stay? What about Paul Lewis? Those will probably be the three of Vanderbilt's most important decisions, and obviously the most important one that we don't know about yet is Jordan Wright. He hadn't committed to a decision after the game against UAB, so that'll be the one to watch for sure. We'll certainly have a video about that, but losing 2 of your 5 out of the most highly touted recruiting class of Stackhouse's tenure probably obviously isn't exactly ideal, but I think Vanderbilt can certainly survive with the 3 guys they have, assuming they can keep Dort. And then you look forward to the portal. Now you have some open scholarships, which you didn't have previously. Heading into Saturday, Vanderbilt was even on scholarships, had none to spend. Now has 2 to spend, and some promises of playing time that it can give. So certainly not good for Vanderbilt, but also an opportunity here to round out your roster with some more veterans and guys who could help you next year. Obviously, it just hurts to lose that stability that class would have provided, but again, another nice opportunity for Vanderbilt to go in the portal, make some noise, but hurts. And those guys will probably have good college careers elsewhere. I would guess probably both of them go mid-major just because I think there's some major deficiencies in both their games, and that's why Jerry Stackhouse has opted for maybe some veterans who aren't quite as talented but knew the system better and were a little more well-rounded than these guys. So it will be really interesting moving forward to see kind of where these guys end up and where Vanderbilt goes from here. I think the 3 losses that it suffered aren't tremendous losses, but are certainly ones that you don't love to see. But moving forward, have those 2 scholarships to spend. So thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it, and God bless. Keep you updated with more portal videos and more portal content coming soon. Peace.